Good evening, everybody. It's great to see everybody on this beautiful, cool New England evening. Today is Thursday, June 5th, 2025. It is 7 p.m. This is obviously our June meeting. And just to let everyone know, there's a slight change to the schedule. We did decide, the board of directors, to forego a meeting in August. Just with the heat and stuff like that, we just figured it was better. Obviously, it's not a very cool building in terms of temperature. So we're going to skip over our regular July and as well this year, August. So we'll meet again in September after tonight. Of course, we've got some fun stuff coming up. Strawberry Festival is coming up next week. That'll be next Friday the 13th from 5 to 8. We are looking for volunteers for prep work for Thursday, the day prior, the 12th, at anytime after 3 o'clock. So if anybody is available for prep work, you can gladly let us know and we will be more than happy to put you to work.
Or just show up.
Or just show up. You're welcome here. Doors will be open. We'll be here. So as you can see on our screen here, today's presentation is going to be Children of the Sanatorium. Kind of a strange name, but it does make sense. So for those of you who don't know, a sanatorium versus a sanitarium, a little bit different. When you see it spelt the way it's spelt up here, Sanatorium, that's going to almost always, but not exclusively, deal with tuberculosis versus the other types of sanitariums, which could be for any generalized health care. Sometimes they were just basically kind of getaways where you practice good eating and sleeping. But today we're going to deal with, obviously, Plymouth County Hospital here in Hanson. And I had originally planned on doing just a small section about the children at the hospital, and then really decided to dedicate an entire presentation to it as I came across more and more information and more photographs. So this presentation is going to cover both the children at the main hospital as well as at the Bailey Health Camp, which was located behind the hospital building. Now, as we all feel, it's quite warm in here, though you all are lucky enough to be in front of a fan. I'm jealous. So if we do need to cut this short for any reason, if anyone's just feeling overheated, I think you're all going to be okay. I have it split into 2 parts, so if we only have to cover 1 part today, that's fine. This is relatively lengthy, but I will, as you know, I'm a relatively fast speaker, so I will try and get through it quickly but coherently. So we're just going to cover a little bit of general information to start this off here. So I would be shocked if anybody in this room is unfamiliar with Plymouth County Hospital. It's arguably was our town's most beautiful and important building that was ever constructed here. Right here on the screen we have a picture from either 1919 or 1920, which shows the original sanatorium before the addition on the right was added in 1921. So it was just that original section there before the breezeway connector was built, and then the other wards. And then here we have one of my favorite pictures I've ever seen of a hospital. It's obviously hand-colored. This shows the full sanatorium. As you can see, you can't see the breezeway in it, but you can see the additional 2 wings on the end. And you can actually see the kind of tall roof with the chimney behind it. That's where the auditorium was, for those who do remember. And then the next 2 items are actually from my personal collection. I got these out of the hospital back in either 2010 or 2011, which is the records room was located in the basement. There was a lot of stuff in there, and looking back, I really wish I had taken everything out of there, but I was relatively young and kind of scared I was going to get arrested being in there. But this document here, which actually I do have in a binder over here currently, if anybody wants to see it and handle it or whatever. This is from Calvin Coolidge's secretary, back when he was governor of the Commonwealth. So it's dated May 27th, 1919, so just a couple of days before the hospital opened. And it states, my dear Mr. Kearse, Governor Coolidge has asked me to acknowledge receipt of the kind invitation for him to attend the dedication of the Plymouth County Hospital of South Hanson on Saturday, May 31st. His Excellency thanks you for your courtesy in extending the invitation to him, and he regrets extremely that it will be impossible for him to be with you on that occasion. Yours very truly, Henry T. Long. It took me a couple of years to actually figure out that said Henry T. Long on there. But he was a relatively interesting guy. Actually remained close friends with the future president into his presidency and whatnot. But he was his personal secretary during his entire time as governor. And I read like one article that stated he was also his personal secretary when he was president. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not, but it's a little hard to find information on this guy. But this document, along with the next one, are 2 of my favorite documents in my collection, which I've saved thousands of documents from old decrepit hospitals around the country. This next one here is, oops, skipped over one. Nope. There we go. So this here is actually a handwritten application for admission into Plymouth County Hospital. So this was probably done up right before the hospital even opened, as they were trying to figure out exactly what to include on there. It's kind of cool too. I have this one with me as well. You can actually see right here. It was just written on the back of a county letterhead for the county commissioners. And I found this deep in a pile of stuff that I wish I never had to put my hands on to get to. But yeah, it's quite interesting. It makes you wonder how many other items from the hospital went down during demolition and were never saved out of there. I mean, I don't know if anyone in here ever trespassed in there in its years during its closure, but that records room, it had probably tens of thousands of documents just scattered across the floor. And unfortunately, by the time I actually got a little bit older and was trying to do things a little bit, more in the correct way instead of sneaking in there, I actually had asked the town administrator at the time to allow me to go in there to preserve the documents. I knew exactly where they were and whatnot, and he told me no, and that if I kept going in there, he would have me arrested and charged. So that was that. Here's a glass slide that is actually from the hospital. So these were obviously used to check if you had tuberculosis. This was done for both children and adults alike. TB would show on an x-ray as basically increased areas of opacity, particularly in the upper lobes of the lungs. You'd be able to somewhat determine pretty well if they had tuberculosis at the time or not. And then here we have obviously just a little campaign poster for Red Cross Christmas seals, which I didn't even know are still made today for all sorts of varying diseases. And they actually, I guess, picked back up during COVID. There was a massive increase to purchase from the American Lung Association and whoever else still sells these today. Hold on a second. But yeah, one of the more interesting ways that we'll learn more about Bailey Health Camp in a couple minutes here. But one of the ways that it received most of its funding was actually through the sale of Christmas seals. Those kept going and kept bringing it in. So here's actually a brief history of these stamps. It's from the American Lung Association. It was a pretty good write-up on it. In the early 20th century, tuberculosis was the leading cause of death in the United States. Physicians were experiencing the first signs of success treating tuberculosis in special hospitals called sanatoriums. And one of those facilities had fallen on tough times. The tiny Delaware sanatorium would have to close its doors if $300 could not be raised to save it. One of its doctors explained the plight to his cousin, a volunteer named Emily Bissell. Bissell was a veteran fundraiser, and she soon came up with a plan based on one that had worked in Denmark previously. She would design and print special holiday seals and sell them at the post office for a penny each. By the end of her holiday campaign, and after an endorsement by President Roosevelt, she and a large group of committed volunteers had raised 10 times the goal, and Christmas seals were born. And they were actually able to transition that little facility, which was, I believe, 8 or 10 beds, into a massive 100-plus bed facility, which I believe partially still stands today with a general hospital or some kind of it was still some kind of a healthcare institution all the way up until 2013 or 2014. Go. Hold on. Come on. There. And this man right here took, Alan and I were here talking about this the other day, that for Bailey Health Camp, how did it get its name? We could never find any information. There was very, very little information about the health camp on resources online or in any sort of a database. But this man right here is Frederick T. Bailey. The camp opened in 1924, and Mr. Bailey was named after Mr. Bailey, who had been serving as a Plymouth County Commissioner since 1915. He would have likely been around when the commissioners formed the idea for the sanatorium, which was in 1915. And he would have overseen its construction as well. Mr. Bailey was born in 1867, and he spent his time not only as a county commissioner, but also in the plumbing and heating business, as well as being a map maker. And the map we have here in the background of Situate is one that he actually drew up himself, which is kind of a cool find. He also designed the county seal as well, which I totally forgot to include in my notes here. But I want to say that was in the, Alan, I know you read this recently too, in the 1930s?
Yes, it was designed, the little things, little girls would represent the towns. The largest would be Brockton, the smallest would be Plimpton and Rochester.
Yeah.
And each girl represents a town.
That's Mr. Bailey. That's the only photo I could find of him, clearly from a newspaper, but pretty cool. And then here we have a handful of the buildings at Bailey Health Camp. This would have been, this picture itself is from the late 1920s, which I actually found in an old annual report for Plymouth County Hospital from that era. I forget what year off the top of my head. We have them all in our back case. I want to say it was 1926 to 1928. And I'm assuming, and you'll see this in some upcoming pictures as well, and this is just an assumption on my end, but you'll see that there are some cabins in the pictures, not the full amount that you see here necessarily, but you'll see teepees as well, which I'm assuming were the temporary structures that they were using until permanent ones were actually built. But I'm not 100% sure on that. And now I do actually want to read the thing that Alan actually wrote for me. I thought it was really well written. We're just going to focus on the part about the hospital, but on High Street in 1915, the county built Plymouth County Hospital, a sanatorium for tuberculosis patients. Once again, clean air was thought to be the cure at the time. There was a farm raising pigs, chickens, and sheep. Fresh milk and produce was brought from the prison farm in Plymouth. And again, I'm going to speak as Alan here as he wrote this. So, although I can find no record, it appears that in the 1920s, an individual named Bailey, who we found out who he was, Frederick P. Bailey, came forward with the idea of a summer camp for kids on the hospital grounds. And this was not necessarily for children with tuberculosis. On the sloping field just east of the water tank, a lodge with a fireplace was built, along with a circle of cabins called Bailey Health Camp. It seems to have been popular, as many photos will show. I recall in the 1940s a crowd of kids walking by our house on High Street. The group was taken to Walkie's store for ice cream. One of the kids remarked to me, "You guys are free, we are in jail." Around 1949, the camp closed. Several camp buildings were moved to the doctor's houses on High Street and made into garages. Two were moved to Home Street as a home for the, I don't know how to say, Fusillo? Facilla. Much easier than I thought.
He was an X-ray technician at the hospital.
Okay. And then two more were moved to 1263 Main Street and made into a house, which is still there as of 2025. And then the only thing left at the camp is a site of a row of maple trees and the fireplace from the chimney of the lodge. Pardon the foul language on it. You can thank some local children for that. But that is the one remnant that is left of the camp today. You can find it very easy for those of you who don't know where it is. You basically just go to where the back of the hospital used to be, the back entrance, and there'll be a little side path behind that. You just go up there. It's probably about 75 feet into the woods.
The row of maple trees there.
Yeah, there's a row of maple trees right there that'll give you the location of it. And it's a shame, this was actually not covered. There was really no graffiti on that until I think 2017, which is when this picture that I took is from. 2017, 2018. Could have been a little later too. I don't remember. But it's a shame. It's an absolute shame. Let's get back here. And now we're going to move on to a pretty lengthy, albeit informative newspaper article that was in the Patriot Ledger on August 3rd, 1943. This is actually basically where most of the information comes from on Bailey Health Camp. It's basically a definitive source at this point. There's nothing else that has any amount of this kind of information. Anyways, so this is from, again, the Patriot Ledger on August 3rd, 1943. In the healthful pine-scented air of the Bailey Health Camp at Hanson, located on the highest spot in Plymouth County, not true, but it was believed and still is an urban legend by many people today that Bonnie Hill is the highest point in the county. It's not, I forget what it stands at, like 192 feet?
153.
153? It's
Rye Hill and Whitten is higher.
Yeah. And I know Manamet Hill is the biggest in the county. But, what?
Pine Hills. And we said please to
Yeah, is that where Manamet Hill is itself? Or?
Yeah.
I don't know that area of Plymouth. We should get down there one of these days, though. But anyways, 100 children from surrounding towns whose physical condition is poor who have been contacts of tuberculosis each year enjoy the benefits of this camp, the aim of which is to build up resistance through plenty of rest, fresh air, sunshine, and suitable activities. If you actually had tuberculosis, you couldn't go to camp here. You would be right in front of it at the hospital, but you were not going to camp. And to my knowledge, the camp was an 8-week program every summer. The camp, one of the best equipped of its kind, is operated by the Plymouth County Health Association, the Plymouth County Hospital, and is under the supervision of Dr. Bradford H. Purse, superintendent of the hospital. Each child, before entering, is skin tested and x-rayed. And they are examined in the hospital by physicians named Dr. Roy Littlehale, Dr. Richard Sherman, and Dr. John McCarthy. Twice during the season, the children are given thorough physical examinations, of which records are kept, and their height and weight, which is recorded on entering, is checked each week. A graph is kept of the progress of each child, and those who do not show a satisfactory increase are given mid-morning and mid-afternoon lunches. Sounds good to me. Miss Mabel Erickson, RN, and Miss Agnes Ring, RN, work at the camp dispensary and infirmary. The camp, named for Frederick T. Bailey of Scituate, chairman of the county commissioners, is in its 20th season. So that would put it at 1924. That would have been its first season being open. And the medical program is made possible by the generosity of the people who buy the Christmas seals issued each year by the Health Association and by donations from various charitable organizations throughout the county of Plymouth. On the grounds are 17 well-constructed and screened buildings surrounded by a central recreation field. 14 of the buildings are used for housing, and others include an administration building. You can see here as well, you can see that you're starting to make that circle of buildings that we were talking about earlier, and a lot of fun activities for the children to enjoy. Administration building, which is well-equipped dispensary, an infirmary, office and library, a dining hall, shower rooms, and a large recreation hall, which on Sundays is converted into a church with altar pews and flower decorations. Mass is celebrated on Sunday morning for the Catholic children, and Protestant services are held in the afternoon. Ministers and priests from several surrounding towns conduct services at the camp during summer. Meals are served in the pleasant, gaily decorated dining hall, and the food, which is plentiful and of excellent quality, is prepared by the hospital chefs. Grace is said before each meal, and each child is allowed as much milk as he desires. Each one's birthday is celebrated with candle-decorated cakes and singing, and are gala occasions for the children. On the playground are swings, porters, glory slides, seesaws, and a large sandbox and a merry-go-round. Much attention is given to handicrafts. Early in the summer, work begins in this area, which includes a program of dancing, music, stunts, and some type of entertainment, with properties and costumes prepared by the children of each cabin. On Carnival Day, the recreation field is transformed into a scene of colorful pageantry, with field and cabins gaily decorated. In the afternoon, the children march in costume to the lawn of the adjoining hospital, where they reenact scenes from carnival programs for the entertainment of the hospital patients. The day is climaxed with an outdoor picnic, at the end of which prizes are awarded to the children who have been the best all-around campers, to those who excelled in handiwork, and to the boy and girl who have gained the most weight during the summer. This year, the camp is under the direction of Miss Catherine Hedger of East Bridgewater, a teacher in the Bridgewater schools. She's a graduate of the State Teachers College at Bridgewater and has studied at LaSalle Junior College at Auburndale. Assistant director is Miss Helen J. Wild, a teacher in the Cambridge schools, and head counselor is Miss Loretta Dupre of Fairhaven, who teaches in that city. 10 other counselors complete the staff, each of whom has charge of a small group of children for the summer. These counselors are teachers or student teachers trained in working with children. And next we have a fun list of the daily activities, a full schedule for the children. At 7 a.m. is reveille. At 7:30 a.m., preliminary pickup. 8 a.m. they'd have breakfast. At 9 a.m., to the colors. For this event, the children form 4 abreast and march to the hospital grounds, where they raise the flag and sing patriotic and camp songs. The hospital patients and staff members look forward to this event every single day. 9:15 a.m., sick call. All children with a complaint, no matter how minor, report to the dispensary, where they are examined and treated by one of the 3 doctors from the hospital, whose service at all times are available to the camp. 9:30 a.m., it is time for inspection of their cabins. And missing page. At 10:25, they rest. At 11:45, they go outside for sunbaths. At 11:40, wash up. And at 12 o'clock noon, they have dinner, or noon dinner as they call it. 12:45 p.m., time for some more rest. At 2:15, it's work and play time. 4:15, showers. 5:30, supper. And at 6:15 is assembly. This is held in the large recreation hall. Supervised play, storytelling, and entertainments are carried on. It is a period of fun and relaxation. 7:15 are evening colors, in which the flags are lowered and choral numbers on the hospital greeting. 7:30, wash up. 7:45, in cabins and to bed. And at 8:15, time for some taps. And the Bailey Health Camp appears to have closed in 1949. We see that two of the buildings in 1949 from another newspaper article were sold to the Boy Scouts in Hull as they were constructing their new home base. And as Alan's history mentioned earlier, others were incorporated into garages and even as a house. And now we're going to transition back into the main hospital. And I am absolutely not going to sing this for anybody. I'm not even sure how to fully read a sheet of music, to be honest. But it's kind of it's a really cool thing when you actually do take a look at it. It's the song of the Health Crusaders, also known as March of the TB Bugs. It's kind of weird, honestly. I couldn't imagine, being a young child and having to read about the sanatorium I'm currently stuck in. But it is pretty interesting. It even mentions Plymouth County Hospital at the bottom, and it's just a weird little jingle. I don't know if we have any takers of anybody who would like to sing this for us. No, maybe next time. And it wasn't always common at sanatoriums to have classes for children, but they did at Plymouth County Hospital. Typically, school would be held at a preventorium, which I don't think we had too many preventoriums in Massachusetts. And obviously, as the name suggests, a preventorium was to prevent the transmission of tuberculosis. Though it is possible that the sanatorium here in Hanson did have a preventorium wing, though I have yet to find any written evidence of that. Alan, I don't know if you've heard anything of that, like a preventorium ward or building on the property.
No, the building that you showed me that was the BCI, but I looked at the picture. One of the pictures shows that they appear to be standing in front of that building. So maybe that was used as a
okay. Yeah, I'll have to do some.
They have stairs going up to it.
Yeah. And then here, and this is actually kind of a cool little thing here. I am pretty certain that right next to our wonderful cameraman here, I don't know if you can't really reach it, but I don't know what you exactly call that. You see it up here in the photograph. Just a little. Here, I'll just hold it up for everybody because I wasn't in school in this era, so we didn't have these. But I'm pretty sure that this is actually the one from the county hospital that we see in the picture here, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of brittle, so I have yet to really go through to find the exact page, but a lot of it still does have this like a color to it and whatnot. So at some point, maybe a nice pair of gloves or something, I will go through this and see if we can find that page. It's on here, but I'm pretty certain that that's a piece from the county hospital. Many of the children came from various towns within our county, particularly Brockton. But due to the large number of TB cases at this time, many children also came from Boston, many adults as well. Obviously, we're only focusing on the children here, but they were coming from all over at the time. And here we have, actually, I was on the wrong page there. Oh, we're missing a slide. There we go. Did this one skip over?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, that's all right. But nonetheless, here we still have children. And in this picture, they're actually listening to, it's kind of hard to see on here, but you can see the phonograph right here that they're all sitting around listening to. And let's see. I'm sorry? Oh, I know, right? We get chilly just looking at it, but honestly, on a day like today, seems kind of fun. So Dr. Herman Bremer, who diagnosed himself with TB, established the first sanatorium, which was in Germany, for systematic open-air treatment, which gained recognition for its positive outcomes. And while cold air itself doesn't directly treat tuberculosis, it has historically been recognized that fresh outdoor air, including cooler temperatures, can be beneficial for tuberculosis patients. This is often linked to improved overall health, including better nutrition and exercise, which could have indirectly benefited tuberculosis patients. Also, just in this picture here, which is reversed, I think these are getting out of order. Yeah, all right, anyways, same idea though. But here we can actually see that breezeway, and if you notice in here, unlike what most of us remember, it's not covered. It was actually open air, which was kind of interesting, and I found a couple of other pictures that will be included in a future Plymouth County Hospital presentation that actually show the curvature from the inside, and you can see that it's just open, which was fascinating to me, because going through that years later, you'd never know that it was ever open air. Which is kind of fascinating, honestly. And just very quickly, I'm going to X out of here so I can actually see what's slide. Oh wait, slide 27. Okay, these are getting out of order. Get that one. There we go. And at least in Massachusetts, county hospitals tended to be less isolating than state tuberculosis hospitals. So state tuberculosis hospitals would be ones like Rutland State Hospital, Lakeville State Hospital. Here we focus less on entire isolation, allowing patients to remain in better spirits. So at a lot of the other state hospitals for tuberculosis, you would see really very few people mingling with each other. At Plymouth County Hospital, it always seemed like a party, at least in this area. And here you get another really good view showing that the second floor of the breezeway is uncovered. I don't know what they did in winter, whether they had some kind of a temporary enclosure for it, or if they just screened it in, I'm not sure. But kind of cool. And yeah, I know what you're all thinking. Doesn't the snow seem kind of nice right now? I wouldn't mind a little bit, come on. No one seems excited for snow, I miss it. But sledding appears to have been a favorite activity among the children patients here. It allowed them to get their prescribed fresh air, lung exercises, and general movement, but also gave them something fun to do and make light of a terrible situation. And I wish there was some more context to some of these photos, like this one here. But we have obviously some young kids sleeping. And this is not in one of the main wards, which you see the windows if it was. So I'm not too sure where they kept the younger children in there, because any pictures I do have of wards and whatnot that show the patients in there, it's always adults, and they're always in the large wards. And then here we have two young children taking a gander at a newborn at the sanatorium being held by a nurse. Active tuberculosis during pregnancy could increase the risk of maternal morbidity and mortality, including conditions like preeclampsia, eclampsia, and anemia. There was also an increased risk of preterm birth, low birth weight, and fetal death. But luckily, had a good outcome here. Healthy child. Hopefully the mother was also healthy in the hospital. And in 1943, streptomycin was discovered by, and I'm going to butcher these names, Selman Waxman, who's on the right, and Albert Schatz on the left. Before this discovery, there was no real treatment for tuberculosis. Focusing on health, fresh air, and rest was the main treatment. This changed tuberculosis from being one of the leading causes of death around the world, especially within the United States, to be a treatable disease. Streptomycin became one of the most important antibiotics ever found and changed the course of history, including for our hometown sanatorium. And what you see on the right is obviously a streptomycin test, and that's from February of 1944, so that would have been as earliest, that was probably during his actual trials to see how effective it really was. And then, while I've yet to find the exact year from my knowledge, but if somebody here knows it, please let me know. The exact year of when Plymouth County Hospital transitioned from sanatoria into chronic care. This is another document that I found from within the hospital during my many travels there a number of years ago. So I don't know if everyone can see it, so I'll just read it. But the Plymouth County Hospital, a hospital for the treatment of chronic disease, is owned and operated by the County of Plymouth. The hospital is located on High Street in South Hanson, just off of Route 27. The hospital is accredited by the Joint Commission on Accreditation of Hospitals and is licensed by the Massachusetts Department of Health as a chronic disease hospital for 72 beds. In addition to our regular medical and nursing services, we have an active rehabilitation department with emphasis on physical and occupational therapy. Patients are admitted on the request of their physicians. Outpatient chest Clinic services are available for citizens of Plymouth County. A weekly clinic is held for Brockton patients at the Plymouth County Hospital on Friday mornings from 9 to 11:30 a.m. Legal holidays accepted. There is no charge for this service. The hospital also provides the x-ray machine for our medical staff, interprets the films for the walk-in clinic, which is held at City Hall. It should be noted that because of the nature of treatment provided for inpatients, the vast majority of our patients are of the older age group. Nevertheless, it is our goal to rehabilitate these patients so that they can return to their own home. And here, we just have a final look at some of the children that call Plymouth County Hospital home.
Question.
Mariah,
I always have a question.
I know.
My question is, did they stay a specified amount of time? Did they stay until they got well? Did some of them
For the camp or for the hospital?
hospital?
For the hospital, no. You could be in there for a short amount of time. Could be, of course, premature due to death, or you got better. But there were people who stayed in county hospitals or state hospitals for tuberculosis for years. I know I've seen some records. I think I have one on my personal files somewhere from Plymouth County Hospital, where it was an admission and discharge for the patient. And if I remember correctly, they were in for like 6 years, which is abnormally long. It would be common to see 2, 3, even 4 years, but you didn't normally see beyond that. Usually, if you were that sick with tuberculosis for that long, you weren't going to make it out. Or they would transfer you to a more specialized facility. But there was no time frame on it. You were in there till you either got better or you passed away.
The town reports will show deaths, and they all note at the county hospital.
I never thought to actually look through the annual reports for that. I've always used different research. That's interesting.
But they're noted in the town reports.
Sorry?
They noted in the town report that they died at the hospital.
Okay. Oh, that's fascinating, actually. Yeah. But yeah, it's a shame. I miss that old building. Did anybody in this room actually work there? No. No one candy stripes? Oh, we got one.
In Candy State, but we did bring favors that we made at school.
Okay.
To patients there.
Oh, okay.
And I did have from my aunt, the marriage, her mother was there during the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember how long, I'm going to say maybe a couple of years.
Yeah. Okay.
The head of the senior center used to be a candy spreader there.
Oh, wow.
And the one that runs Leah's club, Leah worked with.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to get some interviews with, because obviously it's as time goes on, less and less people
Know about it.
Right.
When I was a teenager, we used to put on a minstrel show, and we would bring the show to the hospital. They had a nice hall there. We'd put the show on for the patients.
Yeah.
And I remember all the nurses in the front row.
Yeah, I wish I don't have it on this presentation, but I posted it, and it got me some nasty messages back. But I had posted from the glass slides that Bruce Young had donated, which is where a lot of these are from. I've been digitizing them over the last couple of years, and certain ones I've restored, but one that I had posted early on was of a minstrel show in there, which have some folks, obviously, at the time wearing blackface. And I posted as part of historical record, and some residents of town were not happy. Some even complained to the town administrator on me. But I'm not going to back off. It's history. I don't know what folks want. History is not always comfortable for everybody.
I was in the chorus, and I can remember looking out, and there were a couple black ladies that I knew, in fact. There were nurses there.
Yeah. And
they were in the front row, and they were cracking jokes, and they were laughing. They weren't offended.
Yeah.
That was another time, of course. But.
Right. One of the cool things that I remember, so I had never gotten to see the stage at the hospital until after it was already burned.
Yeah.
So obviously it was just in ruin, which was
a beautiful spot.
Yeah. I have thankfully found a handful of pictures from back in the day, and then friends of mine who had been in there when it was still in good condition. But one of the coolest features in the whole hospital, if you went onto the remnants of what was left of the stage, and I'll bring pictures in on another time, another meeting. there was all the writings from all the people who had performed written on the wall in pen, pencil, and all that, going all the way back to the 1920s. I mean, it's just fascinating. You know, they used their stage names or what show that they were in, put a date on there. There are hundreds of them in there. It was absolutely fascinating. So I have a few pictures of it. Unfortunately, my last time I had been in that side, that was on the addition side. It was not long before the town tore that section down in 2016. They tore down that section. And I had actually gone up there to try and get a few pieces of the wall, and there was so little left. Kids had smashed it by that point, which is a shame. A lot of stuff. There was a lot of good stuff in there that never did come out, unfortunately. Since we're on the topic, the wildest thing I ever found in there, which was underneath the collapse of where the auditorium was, the stage. It was terrifying. I don't recommend anyone to ever do anything like this. There was a small gap in the collapse that you could actually squeeze yourself down and then drop into the basement. And that was otherwise completely inaccessible by that point since that fire. So when you drop down there, you got just this little open corridor in the basement. And then if you kept walking towards the end of the ward, on a side room in there was a bunch of storage from different state hospitals, so asylums. And there were 3 or 4 electroshock therapy machines that still had their inventory labels on them from Danvers and Taunton, which was kind of interesting. Should have grabbed one of those. That would have been interesting to have in the case right here, I'll tell you. Because I've actually seen some people find those every once in a while. Somebody will find one in an old building, and they go for thousands of dollars. Fascinating pieces of equipment. But yeah, times have definitely changed. Any other questions? Yes, Frank.
To the camp,
Yes.
baby camp, correct?
Yes.
What was the age group for the baby camp?
Haven't found a direct age. I think the best way to kind of figure that out, get back to the beginning here, would really honestly by just looking at the age of who's in there, engaging it that way. I mean, the only information that I really have besides, a million snippets that, a child from Rockland or a child from Abington was sent to the Bailey Health Camp. There's no other information except for that article that I unearthed the other night, which is unfortunate. I'd imagine it was probably like 4 or 5 years old, maybe a little bit older, but I would imagine, I guess I would go with probably 5 to maybe 12 or 15.
Yeah, I remember the kids walking by, and I would say some were young. Nobody under the age of 6, but
Yeah.
some of the kids were probably 12, 15.
Right. Let's find a camp picture. Yeah, this is
The playground, yeah.
Yeah, let me get back into it.
Question.
Yes.
They weren't isolated from each other, but were they isolated from their own parents?
And at the hospital itself.
Yeah, did the parents get to
Yeah.
come?
Yeah, you could visit. You don't find, for Plymouth County Hospital itself, I've never found like a written story of somebody going to visit their tuberculosis child at the hospital. But you can find other hospitals of the same nature, and it was pretty common to still go visit your family and whatnot, if you had family. Because a lot of times, one of the reasons why you might end up in county care or state care instead of private sanatorium was you were poor because your parents had already perished from tuberculosis. So you basically became a ward of the county until you were either passed away or were better, and then you were given to the state, which happened unfortunately all too often.
Question,
Yes, Joyce.
would not that be on the censuses for 1920, 30, 40?
So in theory, it should be, because I found prisons and state hospitals on there. I've looked for a Plymouth County Hospital one. I haven't found it, but I haven't gone through just the entire book. Yeah, I've done some searching, but again, I haven't done the full browsing. It's been on my list, but that'll take a while for sure.
Maybe I'll do that for you.
Oh, I would appreciate it. I like that. Thank you. Yeah, it would be interesting because I don't really know how many beds were at the hospital. So if we find, when it transitioned to chronic care, we see 72 beds. But I think there were definitely more than that for tuberculosis because it was definitely overcrowded during certain times of its existence. I mean, luckily Plymouth County Hospital was one of the nicer tuberculosis hospitals in New England. So we can always be proud of that as Hanson residents, that we had a good tuberculosis hospital and not just a warehouse. And I think the pictures a lot of times show that here, and stories you hear from people who work there and whatnot. Frank?
Why was Plymouth County, Hanson in particular, chosen for the hospital?
So, you hear a couple stories about it. Legend has it, this is what I read on one source once. Alan can feel free to correct me if I am completely wrong. What I heard is in 1915, obviously with the need to build new tuberculosis hospitals everywhere, the county commissioners had decided they needed to build a county hospital. Plymouth did not ever have a county hospital before that, while other counties had already for 20 years or so had their own county sanatoriums. So the county commissioners supposedly took a map of Plymouth County, drew a pretty crude X on it, and the center point came to Halifax. But in Halifax, there's no major hills. It's too wet, too swampy. So they looked, what are the nearby towns? Because you still want to be centrally located. I mean, it's a little bit north central of the county, but it's still a pretty good area, in good relation to Boston, good in relation to public transport. So they started looking for new land, and they came across Hanson. That was one of the options, one of the surrounding towns. And then as they were going up High Street, they found a perfect bit of land. It's just some farmland, pretty rural side of town at that time. Close to, you had the electric car, you had the streetcar, you had the train station just down the street. You're right stone's throw away from a state route, from a major road at the time. So they chose Plymouth County Hospital to be up there. That's at least the story that I have read. Sound pretty accurate?
Yeah, the elevation was an important thing, and of course,
Right.
that was a farm, and that was part of the thing they wanted to grow as much as they possibly could.
Yes.
Healthy food.
Right.
So they purchased that farm, which went with the Barney house, and then they purchased additional land that went off to run off.
Yeah.
And I knew a lot of the people that, I knew Dr. Purse, and I knew Dr. Martin, and Dr. Streeter.
Yeah. And that was it for during the TB period. That was just those three, right?
Yeah, Dr. Streeter was there when it transitioned to
Yeah.
a chronic care hospital.
Right. Yeah, no, this town was definitely blessed. The hospital itself was just blessed during its tuberculosis era to have very dedicated, long-lasting
It
superintendents.
was a major employer too.
Right.
A lot of people worked there.
Yeah. But a lot of the care came down to just having a good superintendent in place, a good staff, which at a lot of the other hospitals, you didn't see that. You'd see superintendents only last for a year or two, and then they'd basically bounce from state institution to county institution to a city hospital, whatever. And they never stayed in one place too long. You see that a lot with these. Dr. Purse,
He bought a house beside the Fern Hill Cemetery, and he stayed there. And of course, when Dr. Martin came, there was no place for the superintendent. So they took the nurse's building, they moved it over there and made it a nice home for him, and built another with the beekeepers. That's a new building.
Yeah.
Relatively. Because I was a kid, I remember watching the whole process.
right.
But they made a nice home for Dr. Martin there.
Yeah. That house is beautiful, and Dr. Purse's house is beautiful as well.
Yes. But he stayed there after
Right.
he got through the hospital, so he had to do
Yeah,
something.
and it's actually interesting too. I remember reading, I think might have been his obituary or maybe just a write-up of him, and it talked about, I think towards the end of his life had gotten, it could have been him, but I think it was his wife had gotten really handicapped and required an elevator to be built in the house, which is actually still there today. And it's
Elevator, yeah.
really cool. When the house was for sale a few years ago, I went through the online listing and I saved every picture of it because it's actually really cool inside. And it was a kind of stunning find to find the elevator there. But Dr. Purse he was superintendent for what, 1919 to like 1950-ish?
Yeah, in the 50s, yeah. I think Dr. Martin came down in 51.
Yeah. So, he was there, for just so many years. And that was not normal at a hospital of this sort. And he could have retired well before that. He was already a well-accomplished man by the time he came to Hanson, a Harvard-trained physician and all that. And he stuck with this town, loved the town, buried right up at Fern Hill. He was a great doctor, a great member of the community.
I was friends with his son, in fact. I don't know where the son is, his grandson, rather.
Yeah.
And I don't know where he is now, but he was a little older than me. No, he's about my age.
Okay. But unless we have any other questions, that concludes Children of the Sanatorium, which sounds like kind of a bad band name, doesn't it?
Yeah. Very soft.